with my feet like the rabbi did in Selma when he was marching with King, fighting hatred in the ring. There's no stopping to the ding, always moving with a purpose like I'm attached to a string. I'm in a cold world with a warm heart. I see our people divided and that's the wrong start. We gotta pull it together so we can go hard. If we don't do it alone, then we can go far. So let's rise up, show them how we coming. We know that there will be pain, but you won't catch us running. There's no time to complain, because it's now or nothing. We don't suffer in vain, because we're made for something. So let's rise up, show them how we coming. We know that there will be pain, but you can't catch us running. There's no time to complain, because it's now or nothing. We don't suffer in vain, because we're made for something.
Oh, it's been a long time coming. Been through the mud, but we won't give up. Whatever didn't kill us, it just made us tough. We don't need the evil, cause we spreading love. Oh, it's been a long time coming. Been through the mud, but we won't give up. Whatever didn't kill us, it just made us tough. We don't need the evil, cause we spreading love.
Don't let them take your power away. They can spot a hurting soul from a mile away. If they don't treat you like your gold, don't give them time of the day. Cause we can make it on our own, we're good at finding a way. Don't care if you're left or right, we all wanna be safe at night. If you hold my hand through the darkness, we'll make it to the light. Made stronger through the plight, ancestors gave their life. Wouldn't be here today if they weren't willing to sacrifice. So let's rise up, show them how we coming. We know that there will be pain, but you won't catch us running. There's no time to complain, because it's now or nothing. We don't suffer in vain, because we're made for something. Made for something great. Made for something great.
A very good morning to all of you. Maybe for some of you, it might be a good evening, and a very, very warm welcome on behalf of the Brahma Kumaris and also Spill the Honey Foundation, the Baha'is, and none other than the CBJ, Clarence B. Jones Institute for Social Advocacy. So on behalf of all of us, I extend a very, very warm welcome to all my friends here today. I guess we are definitely somebody, and we are very important people. We all gathered here today for a special purpose. It is with great love and respect for each other that we are here today. We are all on a journey in various ways to discover, to uncover, and to recover our self-dignity. This event today is specially organized to help facilitate this purpose. We are gathered here today to spill the honey, a journey towards healing. To open the conversations, I'd first like to invite you to join me in a 1 minute of silence to gather our thoughts and to come into the present. You will hear a few soothing words that will guide you. So 1 minute.
Relaxing my mind. Taking just a minute, I sit comfortably relaxed, inviting my senses to relax, meeting them as friends,
I take this opportunity
appreciating the work they do.
to put all other thoughts
I now choose to give them a break.
later.
I imagine
and close the lid.
closing the motorways
As I bring
of
my
my
thoughts
senses.
together in this moment,
My thoughts begin to slow down.
this very special occasion,
My mind becomes clear.
the occasion
For a
to
few moments,
celebrate culture,
nothing is moving.
to celebrate
My mind is free,
to
resting.
celebrate love,
I now
to
return
celebrate
with clarity.
unity, unity in diversity. I'll take a deep breath in and release. Now, with great pleasure, I introduce to you the moderator for today's proceedings, Miss Rosalini Ubinas, who is a very dear friend of mine. Rosalini is also the youth representative of the Baha'is of the United States to United Nations. In her work, she strives to build unity and higher levels of consensus in the various discourse areas of gender equity, race unity, and meaningful youth engagement. She is also serving her second term as the co-chair of the United Nations Department of Global Communications Youth Representative Steering Committee. As part of the committee, Rosalini assists the United Nations Department of Global Communications in creating programming that is of interest to youth and to ensure to uplift the voices of the underrepresented youth, especially those who have been assisting the UN in the implementation Agenda 2030 and its Sustainable Development Goals. And for those of you who are not so familiar with it, the United Nations has an agenda which we call the Agenda 2030, with the hope of achieving 17 goals. And one of them is human rights and youth empowerment, of which Rosalini is very much active. She's born and raised in the Bronx, New York, and she spends her free time animating the Junior Youth Spiritual Empowerment Program with youth from the area, learning together to grow their knowledge and spiritual qualities through conducting service programs that uplift their community. And so with this, I now hand over to you, Rosalini.
Thank you so much, Sabita, for that calming and grounding moment of meditation. It's so important that for a conversation that will touch on painful or triggering experiences, that we all come together and initiate this conversation on tranquility and love. A love originating from the divine, a love that reminds us of the qualities of the mind and heart that are positive and constructive. Good morning, friends and colleagues. My name is Rosalini Ubinas, and I'm with the Baha'is of the United States at the United Nations. And it's my honor to be here and moderate this conversation with just such giants. I'm honestly a little overwhelmed with the amazingness that's going to happen throughout this program. Today, we're joined with a host of heroic thinkers and figures who will share their personal experiences and stories of advocacy and adversity in hopes to inspire in us new waves of healing and transformation. I'd like to take a moment to thank our partners, the Brahma Kumaris World Spiritual University, Spill the Honey, the Clarence B. Jones Institute for Social Advocacy, and the Baha'is of the United States. Spill the Honey's vision is to use the transformative power of the arts to share hearts and minds and to seek to move people to act for social change. We will be listening more from the founder of Spill the Honey later on in the program. Now, I have the distinct honor and privilege of introducing Fred Farber, a Holocaust survivor. Fred Ferber was born in Sieskowice, Poland. I hope I didn't totally butcher that. Following the German invasion, the Ferbers were forced into Cacao ghetto located in Borjgova. In 1943, the family was rounded up and sent to the Plaszow forced labor camp on the outskirts of Cacao, where he witnessed the, I don't even know how to say this, the murder of his father at the camp's commandant Amon Goth, and his younger brother and relatives are being sent away to the death camp Auschwitz. A total of 88 members of Fred's family were murdered. After being transferred to a number of camps, he was later liberated by a group of African-American soldiers in 1945. Fred refers to these men and his angels. Fred has never seen a Black person before. In the late 1940s, he immigrated to America, staying in an orphanage and eventually receiving his Bachelor's of the Arts in Electronics in 1952. From the late 1950s, Fred was a founding member of the Sharif Halipath Organization, the Holocaust Memorial Center, and the American Jewish Chamber of Commerce. There's so much more to this story that I can only let Mr. Ferber tell it. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Fred Ferber.
I'm really, truly appreciative to be here today, taking a part of this amazing, one-of-a-kind educational documentary. I'm 92 years old, born in Poland in 1928. Before the war, our life in Poland was beautiful. Living together with my mother, my father, younger brother, it was a sweet life. However, in a blink of an eye, when the Nazis took over, life changed forever, and freedom that we took for granted was totally taken away from us for being Jewish. Shortly after, we were taken to the ghetto in Krakow, Poland, to unimaginable living conditions. And those who were able to survive the ghetto were sent to concentration camps. We were sent to Płaszów. And after only 3 days of being there, keep it in mind, 3 days of being there, the head Nazi of the camp, pulled out a gun and shot my father, point blank, in the head, just because he felt like it. Months later, my brother, who was a year younger than myself, was taken away with 5,000 other Jewish people straight to Auschwitz concentration camp, which was a death camp. We all know that. They came in through the gate of the camp and they went out as smoke through the chimney. That was the end of my brother's life. We were slaves, and our lives were in the hands of the Nazis. Throughout the war, I was transferred to a number of camps. I was truly fortunate to survive the war. I was 11 when the war began, and 16 when the war ended. Through those devastating years, I want you to know, 88 members of my family were murdered, never to reunite. I was blessed to find my mother after the war, and we reunited. I remember the day I was liberated. I, along with a few other fellows that survived, we were walking out of the camp, still in our concentration camp uniforms, in a great disbelief that the war was over. Coming toward us were a number of American soldiers with rifles, and we became slightly scared. Why? I'll tell you why. We knew that these fellows were here to rescue us. But these American soldiers were black, and we never seen a black man in our life before. As they come closer to us, we saw the smiles on their faces, waving at us with kindness, tossing to us a variety of small packets of food and chocolate. They were truly like angels, and that was a moment none of us, and I, will never forget. So you ask me, what did I draw upon to be able to move forward after the war? Well, I drew upon the fact that I was free. No one with a whip behind me. The air felt fresh. I understood the opportunity to be able to get ahead, to make a life for myself, and have a family to love again. Each of us need to realize that we are all made in the image of the Almighty. It's hard to understand it maybe. No matter what faith, religion, or gender. When I got to the United States of America, I witnessed white people telling black people to get back to back on the bus, to the back of the bus. I was in total shock. Why would they have black people go to the back of the bus? When I realized what was happening, my heart sank because I couldn't believe that this was going on here in America. I thought I left those horrors behind. In 1965, when I saw the rabbis and many Jewish people walking with Dr. Martin Luther King, I was so proud because we Jews were targeted because of our religion. And now the African American community was targeted because of the color of their skin. It was our place to walk together on that bridge. Yes. So let me leave you with this. My message is to respect each and every individual, regardless of color, religion, gender, political affiliation, or whatever. We all keep in mind, we all share the same 10 commandments. We need to embrace the difference of each person. Never again should we allow a repeat of the atrocities of the past. And let us lead by example, by being an upstander, not a bystander. Let us be part of the change needed in the world. We are truly all created equal. Yes, we are. Well, we have come a long way, but there's still a lot of room for improvement. It is through love and kindness and education too that we can start living the sweetest of lives together. Let's start sharing the sweetness. Remember the words, start spilling the honey so that we can make this world a safe and loving place for each and every one of us, for each and every single human being. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Mr. Ferber, I'm at a loss for words because truly you took us through a roller coaster of emotions, but you ended in like the brightest, most beautiful just note. Like really, I am overcome with emotion to be able to experience this story with you, with everyone here, for your positivity, the light, the way you're such an animated storyteller. Like we can really see the joy when you receive the candies and the chocolates and marching on the bridge. It's just, thank you so much for coming here today and for sharing with us your tremendous, momentous story. Thank you so much. I really wish I could like shake your hand, but this is like all I could do via Zoom. So thank you, Mr. Ferber. So now I have the great honor of introducing another great thinker and advocate, Alexis Scott. Alexis Scott has a long career as a newspaper journalist, the executive and visionary community leader. After nearly 17 years as publisher of the Atlanta Daily World, a newspaper founded by her grandfather in 1928. She was part of the executive team that opened the Center for Civil and Human Rights in downtown Atlanta in 2014. Before taking the helm of her family's newspaper, Ms. Scott has a 23-year career with the Atlanta Journal-Constitution and Cox Enterprises, Inc., where she worked her way up from a newsroom reporter to vice president and community affairs at the AJC, and then director of diversity at Cox. Ms. Scott continues to be involved in the community with service on several boards: the Atlanta Convention, the Visitors Bureau, the Atlanta Jewish Film Festival, and the advisory board of the A.G. Rhodes Health Rehab. Ms. Scott has received many honors and awards, including induction to 4 Halls of Fame, like the 2018 Women's Hall of Fame and the Atlanta Business League, and others. She is currently writing a memoir, including her father's newspaper story, and is co-writer of a screenplay, Beech Tree Forest, based on her father's Army experiences during World War II. She has 2 grown sons and is married to Brian McKissick. Ladies and gentlemen, Alexis Scott.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that nice introduction, and I appreciate the story that we've already been told. My dad was one of those Black soldiers that was at Buchenwald, and he was a photographer with his unit. And he walked around taking pictures, and finally he said he had to put the camera away because it was just too much. He said they'd heard about the camp, but they didn't believe anything could be as bad as they'd heard. But when he got there, it was worse. He said, no wonder people can't believe it now. It was so horrible. But he did take pictures, and he was 22 years old at the time, and it changed him forever, because the Black soldiers were in the segregated army at the time. They didn't even get bullets until near the end of the army, end of the war, in the Battle of the Bulge. That's when they were able to get bullets. And they were left to do support work. They were never intended to really fight. So my dad was in the Engineer Combat Battalion, and their job was to find water and to repair bridges and roads. And that was the work that they were assigned to do. And when they got to the concentration camp, they were called there by a white unit. In the segregated army, the Black units were called corps units, so they could be called up by anybody who needed extra hands or anybody who needed extra workers. And so they were called up by a white division to report to Buchenwald. And when they got up to the camp, my dad said it didn't look so bad until they got around the corner of the entry, and they could not believe it, just could not believe how horrible it was. And he did take pictures. His pictures now are part of the U.S. Commission on the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. He also has an oral history online there. Unfortunately, he died in 1992 at the age of 69. But before he died, he did a brochure that was used to do a display, an exhibit. The Georgia Commission on the Holocaust did an exhibit on his work in the Army and his life. He went on, it really shaped the rest of his life. He taught himself how to play chess after the liberation of Buchenwald. They broke up his unit and sent him to Japan, and he was on a ship. And that's when he learned how to play chess. And by the time they got to Japan, the war was over. So they came back, and he had another long ship ride to teach him how to play chess. So the thing that he was most impressed by, seeing how Germany had all these great scientists and all these great thinkers, how could they be so barbaric and inhumane? It just blew his mind. So he determined that he was going to live his life as a human being. And he focused on beauty and grace. And so he went to play chess. He wanted to get a rating. So in order to get a rating, you have to play in tournaments. So in 1952, he played in a tournament called in Nashville, Tennessee, and the hotel was segregated. They didn't want to let him come in. He said, I came to play chess. And so one of the tournament director came up to the hotel manager and said, he's part of our tournament, he can play. And they said, well, if he can't come in, we're all going to leave. And so they said, well, he can do this, but he can't do that. He can't do this. He'll list things he could not do. And he said, I came to play chess. And so he did. And he began to get his rating. He ended up with a rating of expert. And he also started doing painting. He loved classical music, which he started listening to when he was in high school. So he painted to classical music, and he entered his work into the Piedmont Park Arts Festival, which was a city arts festival in City Park. They didn't want to let him come in to see it. He took us down there, but the park is outdoors, right? So, but they accepted his work. And then when we went to see it, they didn't want to let us come in the park. But he said, come on, this is ridiculous. This is my work and this is my family. So we went and we saw his work. So he did things that confronted the system, but in a very peaceful, nonviolent way. One of the things that he did also was when the city restaurants were desegregated, he and my mother would go to a different restaurant downtown every week just to make sure that they would just be able to have lunch and to be human beings. And that was the way he lived the rest of his life. One of the things that the Black community supported during the war was the Double V campaign. And that meant victory abroad and victory at home, because the soldiers felt, surely we're fighting for democracy, for America, and for white America. We'll be able to get it, freedom and equality, when we get back home. And that was their goal. And I assert that these Black soldiers were the catalyst for the modern civil rights movement, because they were all fighting for democracy and freedom, and they expected to get it when they got back home. And that was why they were supporting Dr. King and the civil rights movement. And my dad had lots of Jewish friends, because many of the Jews who fled Germany and other areas during World War II ended up coming south to teach at Black colleges, because they couldn't even get hired in white colleges. But they were hired in colleges like Morehouse and Spelman. And my dad had friends there who came to play chess with him on the weekends, who were teachers and faculty there. So there's been a longstanding personal relationship between Blacks and Jews in my family and in my life. My best friend, Carol Ashkenaz Kay, who died a couple of years ago, was my very dear friend. She was the godmother to my second son. And she just kept me, I went to Seder's at her house every year. And we just have kept that bond going, because we have that simpatico of knowing that if one of us is discriminated against, all of us are discriminated against, can be. And so I think that is the charge that we all have, is to continue to build those bridges and to see the things that we have in common, because we want to spill the honey everywhere and have everybody be treated as human beings. Thanks. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful that you're able to keep your grandfather's story alive. That I love this idea of chess, bringing people together, how playing a simple game.
That was my father.
Oh, that was your father. So it just, building these bonds of friendship with each other, and just like the influence that your grandfather had on everyone's life. Like, that's something truly beautiful to see. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us, Ms. Scott. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you.
Thank you. So moving on, we have for a musical interlude, for us to have a moment to come together again and just to relax and to process these beautiful stories you've heard. We have Alfia Glow, an award-winning electric violinist, EDM producer, and DJ. Alfia's tracks and arrangements have been featured in leading online electronic dance magazines, including The Daily Beast, EDM Lead, and This Song Slaps. She has opened for international headlining artists such as W&W, Bass Jackers, Seb Jack, to name a few. She has had the opportunity to play at Carnegie Hall and the Lincoln Center in NYC, Disney Concert Hall in LA, and others. Alfia is a resident of Daybreaker, an early morning dance movement in 25 cities around the world, which most recently has partnered with the Oprah Winfrey with her 2020 Vision, Your Life in Focus tour, with celebrity headliners as Lady Gaga, Tracy Ellis Ross, Jennifer Lopez, and others. She thoughtfully and carefully crafts songs and mixes that not only gets crowds moving, but stir the heart and soul in a way only live instrument backed production can. With a classical feel and a touch of EDM, it makes Alfia truly one of a kind artist. Ladies and gentlemen, Alfia Glow.
Thank you.
Althea, thank you so much. That was so beautiful and moving. And it's funny, the thing about music, you can actually like feel it inside, you know, like it actually moves something at our core. Thank you so much for playing for us live. Such a beautiful piece. Thank you. I'll be personally looking you up and finding some more of your content online. So thank you so much. So without further ado, let's move on with our very jam-packed program here. So Dr. Clarence B. Jones, I just want to say I had a hard time condensing your body of work and your bio. So I'm doing my best here, so bear with me. Dr. Clarence B. Jones served as Martin Luther King Jr.'s personal attorney, political advisor, and speechwriter. During his current residency at the King Institute at Stanford University, He has worked on his memoir and has published 2 books, What Would Martin Say? And Behind the Dream, The Making of a Speech That Transformed a Nation. He has received numerous state and national awards, as well as an honorary doctorate in recognition of his significant contributions to American society, including being honored by our former president, Barack Obama. In addition to his accomplishments in the civil rights movement, Jones was the first African-American partner in a Wall Street investment banking member firm, the New York Stock Exchange. He has appeared in notable media, both domestic and abroad, like BBC UK, The Charlie Rose Show, and Al Jazeera. Dr. Jones has been the keynote speaker at numerous events and institutions, ranging from the American Institute at Oxford University to the NYC 92nd Street, the Y. As of 2017, Jones has commenced visiting and speaking at young men and women's prisons. He is currently in Palo Alto, California, where he continues to write and lecture. Also, in conjunction with you, we have the Clarence B. Johnson Institute for Advocacy, established in 2017, which serves as a critical resource for providing multiple opportunities for our diverse youth to serve as informed, empowered, and active citizens, leaders who will provide a more just and equitable society. Its purpose is to keep Dr. Martin Luther King's dream alive, invoking and cultivating human dignity, respect, valuing difference, empowerment, compassion, and unity. Dr. Clarence B. Jones, thank you so much for being here today. I can't contain my cheesy smile, being in the likes of legends that, we read about and we often work towards having a semblance of a drop of your amazing contribution to the world today. Also joining us, I just want to get these bios out the way. Dr. Sherry Rogers, who's a clinical therapist and social activist whose work encompasses movie production, writing, educational programming, curriculum development, and public speaking. She's a co-executive producer of the Eli Inspiring Future Generations PBS documentary, and is a president and founder of Spill the Honey, a Michigan-based 501c3 organization committed to promoting human dignity as well as advancing public knowledge of the Holocaust and civil rights movement, advancing cultural tolerance, drawing attention to contemporary injustices, and encouraging young people to become compassionate global citizens. Rogers also serves as a trustee of the Institute for the Study of Global Anti-Semitism and Policy. Welcome so much, Dr. Rogers, for being here today, for being one of the key organizers in getting this event going and together. And finally, a new friend of mine, but I feel we have so much in common, Judy Rich, who formally began her spiritual journey in 1992, where she discovered a Brahma Kumari Center in her hometown of Calgary. From childhood, there had been an interest in the bigger questions of life and how the answers might contribute to a kinder world. Through the study of Raja Yoga, a spiritual practice, Judy feels she has not only found the answers she sought, but reawakened the capacity we all have for deep contentment, peace, and stability. In addition to currently serving as a center coordinator for the Brahma Kumari Center in Calgary, Judy works as a graphic designer and fitness instructor. Although it may seem that the intensity and noisiness of fitness and the stillness of silence and contemplation are incompatible, she has found that the opposite is true, that they actually enhance each other and create a sense of well-being when integrated. Thank you so much to have such a dynamic panel here today. Thank you all for being here. So let's jump right in, shall we? So we have heard first and second accounts from Mr. Ferber and Ms. Scott's grandfather of the Holocaust. And you, Mr. Dr. Jones, were an active force in the civil rights movement. Within their stories, as I hope you will share with your own story throughout the panel, there is something intrinsically immaterial that motivated them to keep striving for a better tomorrow. In your opinion, what are some of the moral characteristics you all share in striving for a world that allows for all humanity the opportunity to cultivate and express their full range of their capability and contributing to the betterment of societies?
Well, let me just preface my answer first by saying that I remember reading earlier in relationship to Ferber's movie presentation. One of the senior officers had asked General Eisenhower why they were repeatedly continuing taking pictures of the Holocaust. You know, they had enough pictures. Why did they keep the cameras rolling all the time to be sure they got all the footage? And General Eisenhower prophetically responded, well, just in case future generations may not believe if we tell them, if we just write it down and describe it, but just in case future generations may not understand the magnitude of what we see here today. So in the answer to your question, first of all, I'm delighted to be here. It is challenging that it took a young woman in Michigan, Dr. Sherry Rogers, several years ago, upon accidentally meeting me at the Charles Wright Museum when I was speaking in Detroit. I didn't know who she was, didn't even know she was there. Apparently, she heard me speak to a group of high school students about the importance of the contribution of Jews to the civil rights movement. As I said, I had no idea Sherry Rogers was there. I was doing that because I wanted to be sure that these young high school students heard it firsthand from me as Dr. King's personal lawyer, the special role of contribution the Jewish people made to the civil rights movement. And so it was in that context that I met this young housewife and mother who became so influenced by what she had heard and what she had seen with her own eyes, namely me, an African American, making a verbal, detailed, descriptive connection between the experiences of the African Americans and the Jewish community. And against that background, we move forward together to produce what all of you have seen by now, an extraordinary documentary that seeks to tell the story of which I referenced in an extensive way. But you know, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So no matter what the 1,000 words I wrote in that book, or the 1,000 words I may have spoken at the Charles Wright Museum that day, nothing is more powerful than what Dr. Rogers has done and spilled the honey. Now, underlying everything that took place between the Jewish and the Jewish community and the African American community, was the concept of love. Love. Unconditional love and respect for, I'll use a special word called the personhood. It didn't matter what kind of person you were, but a love for the very fact that you were a person, and reflecting the philosophy and religion of Dr. King, who believed that every person was a reflection of the work of God. So therefore, commanded our respect to love and respect that person, whether no matter what color what hair was, whether it was curly or kinky, whether they could walk straight or bent, it didn't matter. And it certainly didn't matter what their religion was. And to put it in historical context about the civil rights movement, is that we knew that no matter how compelling the story we had at that time to end racial segregation, the racial segregation could not be forced or made mandated by those of us who were Negroes and 12% of the population. Our challenge was to get 88% of the population. To us, 88%, they all look white. To get a majority of that 88% of the population to come and join with us. Now, little did we know, when we reached out to that 88% of the population, that segment that responded most immediately to our need were the Jewish people. You know, from a distance, Jews look white. We get close to them, they're not just white, they're Jewish. And they have that special, unique experience that can't be duplicated because it's, as Fred Ferber says, it's so deeply embedded in their soul. They understand what suffering is. If they themselves didn't experience it, they experience it through what their father or grandfather, they understood it more than any number of white men and women in explaining why they were active in the civil rights movement. Their first reaction was, this is what my parents would want me to do, or this is what my grandparents would want me to do. And so Jewish people come by their participation in the civil rights movement, not only from the history of the Holocaust experience, but also intertwined with their deep biblical experiences in the Talmud and the Jewish history. And all of that I was surprised to find all of that packaged in one person. You wouldn't believe it, that all that experience and knowledge would be packaged in one Jewish woman from Detroit. Okay? And not only that, is that she was cute, you know? And she's still cute, even though she's a grandmother, you know? And I say that I don't want the woke people be coming after me now. Okay, say, you know, some kind of male supremacist or something like that. No, I'm just telling you what the truth is, you know. And people ought to be glad that a 90-year-old man can say a woman is cute. Geez, you don't want to be dumping on me. In any event, and by the way, Alexis Scott, you know, the Atlanta world, man, let me just tell you something. I remember so well the diligence, the persistence. I guess it was your father or grandfather, that could be a generational thing, would do in covering us, you know. Those of you who are white may not know that the story of the civil rights movement would be told by places like the Atlanta World, the Pittsburgh Courier. And those papers were like next to the Bible for those of us in the African-American community, because that's how we knew what was happening. That's how we knew what was happening to us in other places around the country. So I am delighted and honored to be here. And I'm glad that the institute that bears my name with my beloved goddaughter, Valerie Still, has enabled this to take place. But you take a look at your screen, you take a good look at Sherry Rogers, and you take a good look at Fred Ferber, and you take a good look at Sherry Rogers. You take a good look at us, you know. You think we're different? No, we're not. We're all part of the same family. When Fred Ferber spoke, I remember him when he said he had never seen an African-American before. He started, what he said, he started to cry. He had never seen an African-American soldier before when he was so forth. So the Ferbers and the Scotts and the Rogers and all the people, we owe the leadership of the African American and Jewish community a great debt for trying to redeem the soul and conscience of America. And I'm glad that I can be a participant and at different points a leader in that. So I'm honored to participate this morning.
Thank you, Dr. Jones. What a powerful introduction to this great panel. I love that you really alluded to your brethren of Mr. Ferber and Dr. Rogers, you know, like Mr. Ferber said, you know, we are all created in the image of the Almighty, of the Creator. So we all are reflections of the different aspects of this Creator with love and to have compassion for one another. So since he already alluded to Spill the Honey, and I'm sure some people in the call are wondering, Dr. Rogers, do you want to give us a little bit of what Spill the Honey is and what really is spilling this honey that I've been hearing a lot of throughout the event?
Sure. First of all, Spill the Honey means that each individual has human dignity, intrinsic human dignity, and has the ability to sweeten the lives of those around him or her. And I just have to say, I am so blessed to be on this extraordinary panel with these amazing human beings. And Dr. Jones, this is his phrase, but I'm going to include this phrase to talk about what inspired Spill the Honey. If you see the film and you'll see the trailer, he says if the lions don't tell their story, the hunters will get all the credit. So I was inspired by Holocaust survivors, Elie Wiesel, Elie Ayalon, Fred Ferber, and Martin Luther King, Dr. Martin Luther King, and Dr. Clarence B. Jones, and Congressman John Lewis, who understood that becoming a messenger and spreading sweetness that stuck to their hearts and souls of all who heard them need to continue to hear their message today. And just like Eliezer Ayalon had to make a choice whether to focus on his own suffering or to find blessings, so too this was the message from Dr. Martin Luther King, who said, "Let us not seek to satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred." His words were honey. His words were about love and bringing humanity together. And think about it, Dr. Martin Luther King did not have social media. There was no Twitter, there was no TikTok, there was no Facebook, but words of love, the power of the word to spread throughout humanity is, God willing, the honey that will stick to us. So we all need to take our own intrinsic value, fill it up, and spill it over. We all have the honey inside us, and it's all up to us to use our voice, to use our own intrinsic special gifts to spread to each individual and to each in each community, to promote civil rights and human rights and the power to lift each person in every community up so that we can spread the honey all around. Thank you so much. And I just want to say that one of the first documentaries that Spill the Honey produced is an extraordinary one called Shared Legacies, the African American Jewish Civil Rights Alliance. And why is this one of the most important documentaries that this foundation produced? It's because it shows how two communities in American history from very different backgrounds, one from the Holocaust and all the representing the Jews that have been kicked out year after year because they were Jewish, to Dr. Martin Luther King's civil rights movement, and how Blacks were treated as less human. They had to carry signs, "I am a man," because people didn't see them as men or women.
that these communities came together to spill the honey. They were able to connect to each other's pain, but not to use it for despair, but to use it to spill the honey that eventuated in the Voting Rights Act, that transformed the conscience of America. So let's lift up the voices that choose to spill the honey. Thank you.
Dr. Rogers, it's evident that your passion for this project and for this cause is so deep and profound. And as you're speaking and you're connecting honey to the words of Dr. King and Mr. Ferber, all I can think about is honey is the only food that doesn't go bad. You know, they found honey in the great, the great tombs of pharaohs, and they didn't try it, but they're thinking that it's pretty good because of one of the magic properties of honey. So it's almost like the work that you guys are engaging in and the words of these leaders is going to last the lifetime of honey, which is it's indispensable. It doesn't go bad. So I think that's beautiful. I'm getting chills thinking about it. So I'm thinking, if Judy, if there's are there some times within like your spiritual practice or working with the people that you do, like how can you bring in the honey, or where does this idea of honey kind of resonate with you a little bit?
I was going to say good morning, but I know it's not morning for many listening in. So good day, wherever you are. And Rosalini, thank you. You're doing an amazing job moderating this very powerful program. I know I am overwhelmed to find myself on this panel. And perhaps those who are listening are saying, you know, like that children's game, which one doesn't belong? What's she doing there? And which is interesting, because I think belonging is such a huge part of the healing journey. So as she was racing out the door this morning, my roommate, who is a nurse, so healing is quite prevalent in our household, she said, "What are you doing on that panel?" She had read the flyer and she says, "What are you doing on that panel?" And then she asked, "Is it because you came from an interracial household? Is it because you had a Jewish upbringing?" And there was such a feeling of, yes, coming here in perhaps a different capacity. And when I was young, I did 4x100 relay. And of course, this is a race where you have 4 runners who have a baton that they pass between themselves around the track, and it's the baton that has to cross the finish line. Not necessarily just the runner, but the baton. And in this context, that baton might be what we're talking about so much, the dignity of humanity, the healing of humanity, the personal dignity of every being. That's the baton. And I was always the 4th leg runner, always. So when you're the 4th leg runner, it's a very interesting experience because for 3/4 of the race, you appear to be doing nothing. Nothing seems to be going on. If someone's just watching you in isolation, they're going, "You call yourself a runner, but you're not doing any running. What's going on there?" But of course, that's not the case. You're doing a couple of things, obviously internally preparing. But for 3/4 of the race, I am watching my teammates run. And perhaps that's the experience of those who were listening, that from the moment Fred, this isn't just spill the honey, this is spill a tear, because the moment that Fred started to speak, it was like, whoa, hit me right in the heart. And then listening to Alexis share about her father, and I just want to clarify, it is your father, right? Share about your father. Again, especially when you started to talk about the arts, because that was also in our household. My mom was a music and voice teacher, and we had painting and dance, and it was just amazing. So I really connected to that part of your story. But again, it was just like, oh, hit my heart. And I bet you those listening, it just like things were just hitting your heart. And a tear. So as I watched my roommates, not my roommates, sorry, my running mates carrying the baton, I was just appreciating them and just amazed by the parts they were playing. You know, Cheryl has an amazing start, and you know, Sherry is just holding that lead, and it was very, you know, I was doing a lot for 3/4 of the race because I knew that I would be nowhere without them. The baton would never reach me without them. I would not have any position to run from without them. So as I listen to these stories, I am just deeply touched, but deeply appreciating. I would never have the luxury, the liberty, the freedom, the opportunity, the privilege to study spirituality without them. And so I feel that we're looking now at the fourth leg in answer to your question of, yes, perhaps I'm here because I'm from an interracial household and a Jewish background, etc., but also more than that. And for me, this spiritual, this identity that unites us, that goes into the timelessness of honey that you talked about, that's transcendent, that's the fourth leg. That's what I feel I'm built to do. So that's all I feel, that's my passion, if you will. So I mean, I thought, will I be able to talk without crying? Because I was so moved by these stories, and I have heard them growing up. And yet, and I know that my parents were part of handing me that baton. I know the sacrifices they made. And I feel a deep responsibility to carry that baton forward through spirituality and to invite souls to explore that, because I feel it's that transcending, timeless, uniting identity that will bring that baton home. So that's some thoughts to share at this point. Thank you so much, Rosalie.
Thanks, Judy. That's beautiful, this analogy I use of running the baton. And like the fourth leg of the race, I'm going to get to that at the fourth leg of this conversation.
I just want to share one thing before you do. I think I heard Dr. Jones share at some point in a previous interview that you were 29 when you met Reverend Dr. King. Is that true?
That is correct.
Yes. So I just want you to know, I learned the other day, Rose Lenny is 29. So there could be a passing of a baton going on. It's quite powerful that she is the same age you were when your life went on a different trajectory when a baton was handed to you. So I am very curious to see what's handed over to Rose Lenny today.
Well, all I need to say is that these are some very big shoes to fill, and the small community work that I do in the Bronx, I can only hope to have a ripple effect, not only in our city, but in the country and really worldwide, like the work that you guys are doing. And one thing that kind of comes to mind is, so Dr. Sherry, this Spill the Honey and Shared Legacies is a documentary, which is a form of the arts. So Dr. Jones, this question is to you. So in 1964, in recognition of the Berlin Jazz Festival, Dr. King writes, "The blues tell the story of life's difficulties. And if you think for a moment, you will realize that they take the hardest realities of life and put them to music, only to come out with some new hope or sense of triumph." So during Dr. King's speech, it's hard to ignore that he was flanked by a host of artists, Harry Belafonte, Mahalia Jackson, Bob Dylan, Mary Anderson, and others. I'm wondering, what are your thoughts, and how do you think Dr. King revered the arts and music, and how are the arts used in the civil rights movement, and how can we use the arts as like the Shared Legacies and other documentaries from Spill the Honey? How can we use these art forms to instill new hope in people?
Well, first of all, as some of you know, or maybe it's revealed in some of the writings, I am the one who prepared that statement. I went to the Juilliard School of Music, and And Dr. King turned to me on the Juilliard, the Berlin Film Festival. He says, "Well, this is. What do you think I should say? This is in your bailiwick." So I'm the one that wrote that for him. He didn't understand. He didn't understand anything about jazz. I mean, yeah, he liked jazz, but certainly not the context of the. So that what you wrote is what I wrote for him to say. But he loved music, and he appreciated what I prepared for him to say. Now, can you repeat your question again? I saw I'm getting old.
I write lengthy questions because I can't help it. I write a lot, but I'm just, so now that I know you wrote that, which is a lot easier, what, you know, and your strong connection to the
It was
art.
1964.
Yeah, in 64.
1964, the Berlin Jazz Festival,
Yes.
which, by the way, was held in East Berlin at the time.
You know, it's history. I love learning about it in real time.
Right.
But so, you know, you just said that you went to Juilliard. So
Yeah.
that what did you find in the arts, and have they helped you in the long run with civil rights and the work you continue today?
Oh, well, in the immediacy of my work with Dr. King is that, Dr. King didn't need me or anybody else to write speeches for him. He was perfectly capable of writing his own speeches. The problem occurred was that the two sources of income for the organization which he headed, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, which was founded in 1959 to redeem the soul of America. The two sources of income came from responses to a monthly mail-in solicitation, and to speaking fees that he got when he spoke. But every Saturday and Sunday, he had to be at the Ebenezer Baptist Church. So if he's got speaking engagements the other 5 days, there's little time for him to do anything else. So I sort of defaulted into this position because as his speaking engagements began to mount up, it first started, I remember distinctly, he had to give a speech to the convention of the National Maritime Union. And, excuse me.
Bless you. Bless you.
You had to find out, you had to know something about the audience to whom you're speaking.
Mm-hmm.
So I immediately had to do some research about the National Maritime Union. It's under the Admiralty Act. These are seamen who were born. But anyway, so it first started out with just by me doing, I'm terribly sorry, me doing just research, factual research for him. And so what I would do, I would present factual research that he would use to make a speech. And then as the number and frequency of his speeches continued, he would ask me, suggest how you think I should use this information you researched for me. So I would start putting the material that I had researched, whether he's speaking to the AFL-CIO or the National Association of American Psychiatrists, or the United Teachers Union, or the AFL-CIO, or United Confederation of Teachers, or the Dental Society, African American Dental Society, of the teachers of different organizations. I would get the facts about the organization, and then I would suggest to him on how they should be put together. Now, the Juilliard comes in from the standpoint is, when I was at Juilliard, not just me, but other students, I went to Juilliard before I went to Columbia College, Columbia University. I was a trained as a classical clarinetist, but in addition, you have ear training and all sorts of other things. But the ear training is important. Why does I say that? Ear training starts out where they sit down. Someone sits down at a piano, and they play a note for you, and they tell you what the note is. This is A. Then they play B or C or D, and they tell you what the note is before they play it. And then they play it back to you without playing notes back to you, and ask you to identify it by listening to it. All right. So your ear is trained to hear something. I mean, A has 440 vibrations per second. C has 426 vibrations per second. For many years, in a good concert hall, I could hear somebody playing and I could say, oh, they're playing that in the key of C, or they're playing Body and Soul in the key of E flat. I mean, it's not just me. People, that's your ear is trained to do that. A trained musician. I mean, people with perfect pitch, as they call it. Barbra Streisand had the perfect pitch. Frank Sinatra's perfect pitch. Aretha Franklin, perfect pitch. Some people are born with it, gifted. The ability to just looking at a note as an egg, you go right to the center of it. Anyway, the point is, I could listen to Dr. King's speak, and therefore, when I wrote, I could replicate in words the sound of his voice. And not only that, I could pick up the rhythm. And so much so, I would say, no, he said to me, he says, you're scary. I said, what do you mean? He says, you write this and then you say, repeat and pause. I says, yeah. He says, you write into my head. I said, well, I listen. I said, I listen to you. And so when I would prepare to write draft speeches for him, in addition to just the substantive material, I could hear the tonality and the rhythm. I could just hear it, okay? Just as I could walk into a room and I could hear, somebody, playing a song, So that's how I got into it. It's not because he was unable or didn't have the ability to do it. He just didn't have the time to do it. And the other thing that I had that was unique, and this I will say was sui generis, that is one of a kind. I'm probably not the best speechwriter he could have had, but I had something that was very hard for him from his standpoint to have, and that was called trust. He trusted me. And he just trusted me. Not only was I his lawyer, but he just trusted me. We had been through so many things together. And he knew the choices that I had. I also, when I was in Wall Street, concurrent with working for him, I made more money than the entire staff of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. Nothing Dr. King could do for me. Couldn't pay me any money. And by the way, as I do my memoirs, I never got paid by Dr. King. All the work I did from Dr. King, from the time I met him when I was 29 and until he was assassinated when I was 37, I never got paid one single dime. I didn't ask for payment because I didn't need the money. And in instances as when I made more money, I was one of the significant donors to Southern Christian Leadership Conference. What am I doing, what am I doing in 1964, 65, 67, and 67 in Wall Street? What am I doing making $150,000, $200,000 a year? That's crazy money. Okay, so I would give at those times, you understand? And I had plus they had called stock options. You gave every underwriting we did, the partner got a participation in stock. One day I turned around, they gave me a listen to my stock portfolio, and I said, "Oh my God, I got $5 million in stock before." How did that happen? Not just me. That was not just me. That's the way everybody. Or as one of my partners said, Clarence, he says, "Don't get surprised. That's what we've been doing that for years. That's the way the white boys been doing it." He says, "That's what the white boys doing for years, working with the crowd." So in any event, so now I don't want you to get it wrong. Now I'm poor as a church mouse. Okay. So I don't want you to think I'm some rich guy talking to you.
I was just gonna ask for college loan money.
No. I'm poor as a church mouse, but I'm rich in treasures that money can't buy.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I just love your very colorful story and just really taking us through the time of, this selfless service and this trust. And as someone has worked with 501c3s, they don't make a lot of money. They run on just the love and passion of people. So Dr. Rogers, in keeping with this theme of trust, having the stories of Mr. Ferber, of Dr. Jones, how do you handle this trust?
First of all, it's a huge weight, that's for sure. But like Dr. Jones just said, he was unfortunate. I don't even know if you know, he was on the cover of Fortune magazine. He could have been a multi-millionaire. Mm-hmm. What did Dr. King do? Dr. King knew that his brain and his hands were touched by God. Of course, all of us are, but he had a little bit special touch. He had this brilliance and he needed a Black lawyer. So he invited him to a church where he was speaking, and he touched Dr. Jones' soul. How did he do it? He did it through the power of the arts. He did it by reading Langston Hughes' poem that reminded Dr. Jones that his mother and father were domestic workers for a white family. And they worked and worked to give him rights that they couldn't have, to give him the freedom. And they worked and worked. And he read the poem by Langston Hughes, A Mother to His Son. And so in that split moment, all the money, and Dr. Jones, he's so brilliant. I mean, he could be leading Bill Gates, believe me, okay? But in that split moment, that touched his soul, that poem, the cadence in Dr. King's speech sparked his soul. So for however his family and everybody to take care of, he knew that he had a higher goal that was greater than money, that was greater. He spilled the honey because he felt Dr. King's honey, and we all need to take our own cups and spill the honey. And that's why Spill the Honey uses the arts, because song is putting the pen to the soul. Artwork, like Devon Cunningham has created artwork having to do with all this history that can bring together sparks of soul, that it's through the arts that we can lift each other up. So when I hear Judy Rich say that she doesn't understand why she's on this panel, are you kidding? Every single human being is a work of art. Every single human being, as Rabbi Joshua Heschel says, has to create their own portrait. And so each of us have to take our own cup, and beautifully, nobody else can do what we can do. So each one are part of this mosaic that has to give and spill over.
You know, Sherry, you beginning to sound like a Baptist preacher, girl. You've been hanging around me and some Baptist preachers. You're beginning to sound like a Baptist preacher.
Well, Dr. Jones, your words and your purpose in life have stuck to me, literally. And I hope that we can have other people stick to this message, because we need to lift Dr. Jones up as high as can be, and Fred Ferber up as high as can be, and Alexa Scott's father and her continuing message as far as we can be. We have to lift up the people that have paved the way so that we can all use our own individual creativity to be a part of this needed mosaic time now more than ever. Now more than ever. While COVID has been horrific for the world, but it has connected us in ways that we wouldn't have wanted, but at the same time, it has allowed us not to pick up our fancy purse or not to fix up our beautiful outfit or go to this important social party. But like Queen Esther, it's Purim, quite like Queen Esther.
Go ahead,
We can
preach,
have
girl.
the courage. We can have the courage to be like Rosa Parks, to be like Fannie Lou Hamer, to not be silent anymore, and to spill the honey, to stand up, to be counted. All of us need to be counted and spill over.
You know, Sherry, we need to, when this COVID is over, we need to go back into the churches. Now, I know I'm going to go into the synagogues. We need to go back into churches, but the role is going to be role reverse. I'm going to introduce you, and I'm going to have you preach. Because when I go into synagogues, you have me speak. So.
We got to put her behind a pulpit for sure.
Put her in the pulpit. Thank you.
For sure. No, I love that you use honey because I love bees and I do a lot of my spare time. I read about insects. And the thing about honey, and you were talking about the arts and how the arts are so intrinsic to us. And one of the things about the arts is that the arts explains the aspects of the divine that science and language can't do, right? And the beauty of God, the creator, the universe has put arts in, you know, the soul is attracted to beauty and we all love and draw ourselves towards beauty. And thinking about honey, if you shake honey on a tray, it actually reforms the shapes of the combs that it came from. It has this like cellular memory to it.
Beautiful.
So it's like this honey that we're spilling and that we're sharing with each other, it like literally sticks to us and kind of embalms our souls in this sweetness and the richness and the message that we need to keep doing the work that we're doing together and also like with our own communities, because it's all interconnected, you know. And just like bees, if we don't have bees, we're gonna die very shortly after, right? Like bees are so important, and honey is just something so like the fruit of the best workers of the planet. So if only we keep buzzing around like bees and produce some of this honey shared with each other, we can really create this like beautiful world that we're trying to achieve. I just wanted to remind our guests that if you have any questions, please send them to CBJ Institute that's in the chat. They've been really active. It's actually Valerie back there. She's been really active in putting in some beautiful messages in there. So if you have any direct questions, you can put it in the chat for CBJ Institute. That way they won't get lost in all of your lovely communications. So
you can also send some checks too if you want to.
I'll take a check too. You know, the Bronx is the poorest congressional district of the state of New York, so we need all the funds.
Oh, that's right. Okay, I got you.
We can spill the money, not just the honey. Right?
Money and the money, right?
Right.
But I do have to say, I would be remiss if we don't think of all the worker bees. The worker bees like Lisa Weitzman and Shoshana Janner, and Amy Niederlander and Sherry Kaufman Ferber, and all the worker bees and Sherry Frank who have made all this possible. Of course, Clarence Jones that you see here, Dr. Jones. And we need to lift his message up as possible. So truly, we do need help, and we want you to help us create this honeycomb, because every single person needs to speak with honey. We can use our words to either sting like a bee or use our words to spill the honey.
That's beautiful. And just to kind of close up a little bit, you know, Judy mentioned I'm 29 years old now. Dr. Jones, you met Dr. King at 29, you know, and I work with a lot of young people. So do you, Dr. Rogers, because we understand that the youth are the future, right? So I'm wondering, in part of the work that we're doing and the part of the work that I do with my friends, a lot of times we become disheartened and frustrated because, you know, the change doesn't seem to come fast enough, right? We want things to, we see the injustice, we put in some work, and just we still don't get the fruits that we're hoping for. So in your ample experience in your life that you've done so much, Dr. Jones, what is a kernel of wisdom that you can leave with young people in the hopes of this bettering of our lives and of the world around us?
Commit yourself to be the very best that you can be. Commit yourself to the pursuit of excellence. And in spite of all of the influences to the contrary, at the end of the day, the power of love, the power of love. Love, I'm not talking about romantic love. I am talking about the love that comes from a love of self and a love of the people you serve. The people you serve or seek to serve are a reflection of who you are as a person. Now, they may look differently. You may be seeking to help some person who's on a Native American, on an indigenous land. You may seek to help them. They may look differently than you are. When you get up close and personal, your help is a reflection. Your help to them is a reflection of who you are. You want to change the soul and help the soul of America. First, you have to have a sense, in spite of everything you read and hear, in spite of everything you read and hear, there is an innate goodness in people. I know, you can cite instance after instance after instance after instance after instance. Okay? But either, as Sherry Rogers quoted me, if we, the surviving lions, don't tell our stories, the hunters will get all the credit. And the surviving lions' stories, which I want us to tell, is our capacity to love one another and endure the pain and feel the pain of our other brothers and sisters. And by doing that, we become more beautiful. We become better than we otherwise would be. So everyone you seek to help, Dr. King would tell me, and others, is a reflection of who you are. Listen to me now. Everyone you seek to help is a reflection of who you are. Oh, well, you cannot be that, That person got, he's got curly, or he's old. This person's got person's white, this person's black, I'm black. Why should I help that white person? Different. No. Everyone we seek to help. And in the context of the reality of what is going on in our country between African American and Jews, I have a surprise for you. I'm a professor. I'm reasonably knowledgeable about American history, okay? I mean, on a good day, you ask me, I would say I'm very knowledgeable about American history, okay? And I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, much of America, of the best that has occurred in America, has occurred because of its so-called minority populations. Okay. Now, I mean, I can bring it down front for you. In Detroit, in Motown, right? I mean, 12% of the population was making music that 88% of the population was going out and popping their hands and dancing. Okay? When Martha and the Vandella was talking about dancing in the streets, they weren't talking about 12% of the population dancing in the streets. They're talking about the whole nation dancing in the streets. Motown out of Detroit became a reflection of the nation, of who we are. Okay? Now, I knew America was coming to a moment of truth. When I started years ago listening to white boys rapping, I said, oh Lord, what's happening? When I started listening to white boys doing rap songs as good or better than black folks, I said, God help us, we have arrived. I'm not just talking about Eminem, I'm talking about some white performers who, if you close your eyes and don't look at them, don't tell me you can tell that they're not black. Music is such a crossover thing. Well, guess what? The experience that the African American and Jewish people had during the Civil Rights Movement, we have to hold on to that. That is precious. Don't let anybody take that away from us. And the reason I feel so strong about Dr. Rogers and Spill the Honey is because, see, she's too close to it. She may not appreciate that in the years going forward, the Spill the Honey has created such a special moment in American history that cannot be extinguished. It can be duplicated and expanded, but nobody can say it didn't happen. Nobody can say it didn't happen. So when Fred Ferber talks about being liberated by Negro soldiers, nobody can say it didn't happen. It happened. It was a historical fact. So what Jews and African Americans did during the Civil Rights Movement is an indelible, irretrievable, incontrovertible fact that transformed American history. And the Black Lives Matter movement, you didn't ask me the question, so I'm giving you the answer to the question you didn't answer. Okay. The Black Lives Matter movement has built on the foundation of what we sought to do in the Civil Rights Movement. The Civil Rights Movement was a morality-based movement. Okay. The Black Lives Matter movement, after several instances of police brutality, and what happened to the whole nation seeing a young man begging for his life for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, raised the question, what kind of country is this? Dr. King when he let the country see what was happening to dogs biting people seeking to march peacefully in jail in Birmingham, and fire hoses. He raised the question, just what kind of country does this? So the Black Lives Matter movement is saying, what kind of country does this? Okay. Not what 12% of the population sees, but what the majority of American population, so that 67% of Americans were in motion behind the Black Lives Matter movement. And apparently the movement was so strong that it got people marching in Sweden, in Norway, in Denmark, in Germany, in England, in Mexico. Okay. Why? Because it was saying to the world, what kind of country permits this to happen? Morality is is universal. Something is either right or wrong in Uruguay, in Germany, in Sweden, and in Norway, and in Mississippi. Something is right or wrong. So I've shut my big mouth now.
No, I feel like you've touched on so many things. You know, the Black Lives Matter movement is actually nominated for a Global Peace Prize because, you know, because of its like globally changing transformative effects.
Right.
You know? And it's personally someone that has been marching since I was like 15. It was like the first time I really saw in my lifetime so many people coming together from different walks of life, from different professions, who may not have seemed affected, right, because they're not Black or whatever, and they're marching equally as upset, equally as passionately, equally as invested in the outcome of the movement, you know. And you know, as you were highlighting, you know, the experiences of African Americans and our Jewish brothers and sisters, all I can think about is how humanity, you know, one of the things we talk about in the Baha'i writings is how humanity is kind of one human body, right? And when your leg is infected, all the white cells from your whole body go to the leg to fix that leg. You know, it's not detached from the arm, the leg is detached from the head. We're all connected. So what happens to one person or to one community really truly affects all of us, because this question of morality is universal and connecting all of us together. So we can't think of something happening as completely remote and devoid and separate from us, because in some way, shape, or form, it does really affect us, right? And just yeah, there's just so much. I can't say anything better than what you said, but I will stay committed to being excellent. I will stay committed to the cause. I will stay committed to the power of love and committed to the people that I serve. And unfortunately, because there is a shortness of time, and right now we have no more questions, I'm going to ask Sister Judy to help us close out the event and lead us to a moment of meditation. I just want to say, before we get to that, I just want to say thank you to you, Dr. Clarence B. Jones, for sharing your time with us here today, for sharing your wisdom, for sharing your joys and your experiences. I want to thank you, Dr. Sherry Rogers, for sharing your art with us and for putting in the work, you know, the endless, tireless hours that you're putting in with the youth, with the stories of survivors, the stories of advocates, and creating beautiful, transformative art, and for spilling the honey for all of us and for encouraging us to continue to spill the honey. I want to thank Mr. Fred Ferber for his moving story and personal account of survival and liberation and inspiration. I want to thank Sister Alexis Scott for her stories of how her father and her grandfather inspired her and inspired cities and communities to focus on this art and to focus on this, the taking of the account of the real stories and photographing it and ensuring that we don't forget, that we never forget, because it's a history that we all share, right? We may not, maybe my people in the Caribbean may not have been physically, in these camps or living in that experience there in civil rights, but because our morality is connected, it affected us. And because of the work that you did, my people were able to come to this country and be free in a sense, and we can continue to work to do this together. So I just wanted to thank you all today. Thank you all for being here with us. And I hope everyone else on this call is equally as moved and transformed and sweetened by this great honey. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I would just want to say one last thing. Judy Etkin without Judy Etkin, she has really helped support this this endeavor. And each one of you, if you want to help support this, we need your names. We need you to stand up to be supportive of our mission to spill the honey, to focus now more than ever on Black Lives Matter. Because as you so beautifully said, Rosalini, that if one part of our body, our human family body, is still sick, and the fact that we have a sickness, a prejudice that still exists, and it's the Black community, like Rabbi Joshua Heschel said, that Martin Luther King was a gift to America. The Black community can teach the world the importance of how we are all connected, and that we are not a healthy world until we fix that problem.
Well, may I say one point here?
Yes, please.
Okay, just want you to know that we cannot always depend on everyone else being great. There is such a thing, expression is that perfection is only in heaven. So none of us is that perfect. None of us want to go to heaven that fast. So we're all imperfect in some ways. So it's not a question of everyone else being great. We have to understand the human nature, the imperfection of the people listen to. Sometimes they're wrong. We cannot jump in and tell them you're a liar. We have to be very careful how we act. I've been taking this lunch and learn for a tremendous amount of time. And sometimes we know what's written, where it's written, but we don't do what we learn. I did that. Thank you. It was a very meaningful morning. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to add my thanks too for this morning, and hearing Dr. Jones again was really wonderful, and seeing you too. I'm glad you're looking so well and doing well. And thank you, Sherry, so much for the work that you do and for including me in this particular program. I really appreciate sharing my dad's story. And it just is amazing how spilling the honey can really soothe the soul. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone. So after Judy guides us through the meditation, we'll be able to watch the trailer for Shared Legacies together. So please stay tuned, stay with us. And now on to you, Judy. Thank you so much, everyone. I'm honored and humbled.
I also want to thank Rosalini. You were brilliant in this event. Thank you so much. And I have to mention, it's Alfia, is that right? Is that the right name? Alfia, our musician? I think it touched every one of us, whatever our musical preference is. There was something universal. And I could tell she went to such a vulnerable and pure place to create that music. So I think that taught us a lot. And there were a couple of times when Dr. Jones was sniffling and coughing. I wanted to offer him a cup of tea with honey in it because honey is so medicinal. And I appreciate what you shared about honey. I didn't know that. It has a memory of its origin, because I think that's what the meditation will look at, that within every single human soul, there is we've listened to many memories this morning, but a very, very ancient memory, transcending memory of our connection, our ultimate uniting connection to one divine being, and to experience ourselves through the eyes of that being. We say human life is precious, more precious than all the diamonds in the world put together. But do I even experience myself in that very sacred way? then I will appreciate the sacredness of every other human life. So I invite each of us to sit not just comfortably, but in a very royal way, as if you're about to meet a very important person, because you are. This is a meeting with yourself and the Divine One, who has such an elevated vision on you. Taking my thoughts inside, beyond thoughts of day-to-day life, beyond even worldly issues, just for the moment, to a place that's like a temple inside, a very, very sacred space where I sit, experiencing the very essence of who I am. I am human life, a human being, a soul, more valuable than all the diamonds in the world put together. This beautiful spark of life. I am timeless. I've been on my own unique journey and experiences. Each step through time, revealing a different facet of the self. But in this moment, seeing myself whole, like a diamond, a jewel of life, and looking at myself through the mirror of God's eyes. I am so sacred, so precious. I am one of a kind. No one else can be me. And as a child of God, as a human being, I have a heart that when unlocked, overflows with such feelings of compassion, acceptance, forgiveness, understanding, patience, so much beauty. When it's fully open, all the sweetness of the human spirit overflows. I don't need to be on a stage. I don't need to be speaking at an event. Just walking on this earth with my heart open, aware of my sacred identity as a soul, a jewel of life, a child of the divine, one of a kind. Om Shanti. I am a being of peace.
Thank you, Judy. Thank you all. I know Dr. Jones has to leave to go to another event. So thank you from the bottom of our heart for everything that you have shared with us today. And all my newfound friends. Sherry's lovely working with you. And Mr. Ferber and Alexis and Alfia and everyone else. So I really appreciate everything that happened today. And now we're going to watch the Shared Legacies trailer and the foundation song for Spill the Honey. We thought it's very important that you see this trailer because it will just add some more flavor to what you've heard today. And to close us off, really after the trailer, we will flash on the screen all the contact information of all the presenters. So in case you want to reach out to anyone, you can have access to that. So thank you again, and let's enjoy the trailer.
There's an African proverb that says if the lions don't tell their stories, the hunters will get all the credit. I'm telling you the story now because you're young lions and lionesses.
My great-grandfather had been in slavery, and it goes across generations. You just don't get rid of it simply because there are no chains on you.
The effects of slavery are still very prominent, just as the effects of the Holocaust are still very prominent amongst our brothers and sisters in the Jewish community.
The Jewish people have the DNA in their soul to look up close to what happened to African Americans after slavery.
We came to the South, young Jews, rabbis, many of them refugees from Nazi Germany. We hear Dr. King quoting the prophets. That was extraordinary. It made us proud.
Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel said, "The future of America will depend on how it responds to Dr. King."
It was the work that Dr. King had spoken for, fairness, equality, against anti-Semitism, and for freedom for Soviet Jews.
A large Jewish presence in the civil rights movement was evident almost from the beginning.
Well, Stan Levinson and Harry Wachtel, the lawyers were working with Dr. King. They were advisors, marchers, fundraisers. They were in the thick of things.
Many Jewish students worked all across the South. And I will never, ever forget 3 young men, Andy Goodman, Micah Scherner, and James Shaney.
Birmingham is Birmingham.
We all know the Exodus is the central narrative of our redemption. And here is a modern situation. Shall we do nothing?
We could not have gotten anywhere had not Protestants, Catholics, and Jews showed up from all over the world.
Rabbi Yaakov Prince
spoke immediately before Dr. King.
The most shameful and the most tragic problem is silence.
The civil rights challenges of our time, the human rights challenges of our day, they hang on me, they hang on you, they hang on who? They hang on us.
We all need to get together to find out the bigger picture. Those who have been stepped upon have to lead the way.
It's all about our humanity. And if we don't figure out a way truly to work together, we'll just be like hamsters on a wheel. The systemic oppression and issues will just continue.
There are too many people living in fear. If Rabbi Hersher and Martin Luther King Jr. were here today, I think they would be saying, we need to pull together for the generation yet unborn.
We dare not rest on the historic laurels of our great congregations. We've got to put on our marching boots and get to work. And I feel good that I've got a partner in that.
The soul of America is at stake.
I'm living in a different world. But see, I don't pay no more. Smelling honey, so feeling something.
You can have anything you want.
Stand up, stand up, stand up.
Sharing is generosity, colossally on the top in the air. Travelocity, awesomely redefining what is possible. Most probably the team that makes good the hot commodity of product we throttling land clouds and nautically. Inequalities are hypotheses, and it starts with we. The truest verse MCs working for unity on a new page. We got the light in the dark like a match in a cave. 1,000,001, just a fraction of graves. Getting paid for the cause with some raps that we made. Positive realities for what we slave on the road that the Lord paid. Praying and swinging the sword on this good man feet, killing it. We got that cup of honey, spilling it. We got a vision and we're willing it. We choose to give and we're feeling it, spilling it.
Spilling honey, your love is sticking to me. So that pain and that darkness, nothing. Yeah, it ain't nothing. Yeah, and I be spilling honey. Your love is sticking to me. So that pain and that darkness, nothing. But you know it ain't nothing. Yeah. My mother gave me a cup of honey, sweet and sticky, says son, go start something. So now the bees buzzing, because I can't let a brother die, can't let a sister cry, stop it with the genocide. I never know if I'm saving lives, but I feel good living mine and giving back at the same time. In constant progress till the peace come. Don't bystand, baby, do something. I can't prove nothing but the loving that I got. And if the rain coming, well then you know that we be dancing in that. And I need more honey, so please just bring that. And feeling sting, but I wake up and give it more than I ever take, and do it for the world, if not yourself.